I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Director Zamora, would you please read our vision statement for us?
Education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Before we get into our regular order of business, we have a real treat this evening, and I'd like to invite Norm Bauer, Development Director for the Davenport Schools Foundation, to talk a little bit about the scholarships.
Well, thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. I am Norm Bauer, the Development Director for the Davenport Schools Foundation. We were founded in 1987 to provide otherwise unavailable resources to enhance the educational environment and to help each student pursue his or her full potential. We fund the Great Minds programs as well as numerous scholarships ranging in value from $12,000 over 4 years to a one-time award of $300. Our 15-member volunteer board, Gene Conrad and I, serve as ambassadors for the school district through the Great Minds projects, civic events, and media relations. In the past school year, we coordinated 80 Great Minds programs for individual classrooms as well. As well as the district-wide enhancement program for over 9,000 elementary students who visited the Figge, the ballet, Vanderveer Park, and many other venues. Gene Conrad conducts this effort. Gene, take a bow. Where are you? Thank you. We also conduct special events like the gala that celebrated the Foundation's 25th anniversary last October. We just concluded our Tribute to Teachers campaign to boost teacher morale and to raise funds for the Foundation, just concluded in May. We provide many extras for our students throughout the year and are happy to do so with your generous support of our operation. I want to acknowledge the very positive working relationship DSF has with Superintendent Art Tate and the District Liaison, Rachel Steiner. They and the rest of the ASC staff are great to work with year after year. Now, tonight we are celebrating another graduation of the district's senior classes. Specifically, we are honoring our talented sons and daughters, the students who have won more than $44,000 in scholarships from our foundation. There were 36 winners, several of whom who are here tonight, accompanied by their parents. In addition, we will be writing checks in August to winners of previous multi-year scholarships from the past 3 years for another $13,000. So we've set a new record this year, over $56,000 in scholarships, and 3 new ones. I'm just really excited about that. Before I introduce the winners, I want to acknowledge our board members who are here tonight. Board President John Korn, scholarship co-chairs Manny Fritz and Sherry Fries, Chris Hester's on our board, and Tony Williams in the back. Could you stand, please? Now, the scholarship committee is headed by 2 people, but it has about 5 or 6, and they just represent a small army of other volunteers, retirees, graduates, and teachers who help with the special selection teams. People like Rob Scott, Michael Reese, Deb Buttleman-Malcolm, Louis Means, Brenda Jordal-Buckles, Judy Hammond, Vicki Kepi, and Betty Nelson. These folks just represent a much larger team of volunteers who handle this big evaluation process. Thanks to all those members, too. And I have to offer a special salute to our many donors who create and add to the scholarship monies each year. They play a quiet but very significant role here tonight. And we really, truly appreciate their vision and generosity. I want to talk briefly about 3 new scholarships we're presenting for the first time here tonight. First is the Mary Means Scholarship. Mary was a family and consumer science teacher in the district for 35 years. She won the Golden Apple Award for Outstanding Teacher one year. She passed away in 2012, and her husband, Louis Means, a West High counselor, decided to create this 10-year, $1,500 scholarship in her memory. Following her career path, this scholarship targets students who want to major in either education or family and consumer science. I wanted to say thank you very much to Mr. Means. I believe he is here tonight. He preferred not to be part of this ceremony, but we will acknowledge his service to the school and this scholarship. Now, the winner of this year's Mary Means Scholarship is Emily Doxey of North High School. Please come forward. Step on up there. Face down. Yeah. You stand on this side. Okay. Yeah, she will. Just go ahead and head over that direction. Emily is the daughter of Don and Gail Doxey of Davenport. She plans to attend the University of Northern Iowa. Second is the Midwest One, You're the One scholarship. A year ago, the bank contacted me saying they wanted to support the downtown area served by the bank by offering two $500 scholarships to Central students. We are very appreciative of their outreach. Deb Mueller of Midwest One is here tonight. Please stand and be recognized, Deb. Thank you so much. The winners of this scholarship are Miley Duong and Brianna Nash of Central. Please come forward. Miley's parents are Lan Yuan and Ha Duong of Davenport. Miley will attend the University of Northern Iowa. Brianna is the daughter of Sam and Julie Nash of Davenport. She will study at the University of Iowa. Thank you so much to the Midwest One Bank. The third scholarship to join our program this year is the Carol Herring Scholarship, named for a great lady who taught kindergarten at Eisenhower for 3 decades, and she passed away in 2012. Her daughter is here tonight to present the first ever scholarship. Cynthia is going to say a few words at this time. I'd like to also ask that Sam Flesberg and Emily Doxey step forward here. Thank you. Cynthia?
I just want to say it's really great to be back in my hometown, Davenport, Iowa. This is an exciting time for me and my children's choir in the Tampa Bay World Nation group. We just released a CD, and this past Saturday we held a CD release party and fundraiser for the Carol Herring Memorial Scholarship Fund. This was at the River Music Experience. Proceeds from the CDs sold totaled $750, and with several donations, including a $1,000 gift from a close friend of our family, we are pleased to give $1,800 to the Davenport Schools Foundation to add to my mother's scholarship fund.
Step on over here for a second. You want to finish?
We are here to pay tribute to my mother's lifelong dedication to teaching children by honoring the first Carol Herring Memorial Scholarship winners. They are Sam Flesberg, Emily Doxey, and Michaela Swift. These graduating seniors have set their sights on teaching as a career, and we look forward to hearing about the great things that they're doing in the field of education in the years to come. I want to say congratulations, Sam, Emily, and Michaela. Finally, and very important, I want to thank Norm Bauer and the Davenport Schools Foundation for their phenomenal work. I would also like to extend a special acknowledgement to the Davenport School Board, the administration, and the Davenport school system staff for their above and beyond service. You have a difficult job, and you are too often underappreciated. I wish you all a wonderful summer. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and do that first. Sam Flesberg is a Central High grad. His parents are Larry Flesberg and Judy Worringer. He's headed to Coe College. And the winner of a $500 Herring Scholarship is Emily Doxey of North High School, whom we met just a moment ago. The third winner, Michaela Swift of Central, is unavailable tonight. She won a $500 Herring Scholarship and is headed to St. Ambrose University in the fall. She is the daughter of Monica Swift of Davenport. Congratulations to our winners. Yeah. John.
always nice when you give money, yeah? Because we can pass it on to you.
Now, a week ago, on Sunday, June 2nd, each of the young people we're about to meet went through a milestone graduation at the iWireless Center. It was a big day for them and their families. As I call each name, I'd like for the student to come forward and face the audience. I'd also like to ask the parents to stand and be recognized as their child comes forward. Please hold the applause until all are introduced. At the end, we're going to take a group photograph of the students posed behind the school board. The winners include the following students. Austin Wolf of North High School won the Catherine Bell Tate Scholarship for $12,000 over 4 years. He is the son of Michelle Wolf of Davenport. Austin will attend Bradley University in the fall. Dylan Beal of Central High won the Joan Kohlberg Lowen Scholarship for $4,000. Oh, sorry, goes to North. My bad. His parents are Randy and Bonnie Bale of Davenport. Dylan will enroll at the University of Illinois in the fall. Is that right? Yeah. All right, good. I don't want to let you down. Ian Wallace of Central High School won a Helen Poling Scholarship for $1,200, along with a CHS Hall of Honor Scholarship for $1,500. His parents are Daniel and Sharon Wallace of Davenport. He will enter Concordia University this fall. Nicholas Emery of North High School won a Helen Poling Scholarship for $1,200. His parents are Richard and Dawn Emery of Davenport. He plans to study at Western Illinois University. Shelby Tracy of West won a Helen Poling Scholarship for $1,200, along with the DSF Future Educator Scholarship for $500. Her parents are Spencer and Angie Tracy of Davenport. Shelby will enroll at the University of Iowa this fall. Jamesia Johnson of West High School won the Davenport Schools Foundation Scholarship for $1,000. Her mother is Heather Jones of Davenport. She will study at Iowa State University. Clara Loader of West High School won a Class of '59 scholarship for $1,000 and a Johnson School Scholarship worth $600. Her parents are Dana and Pam Loader of Davenport. She will study at the University of Iowa this fall. Her mother's here tonight. Mackenzie Garlock, a North High grad, won the Lisa Arbisser Scholarship for $500. Her parents are Brian and Lisa Garlock of Davenport. She plans to attend Iowa State University. Emily Roebuck of Central won the Jane Grady Scholarship for $5,000 over 4 years. She also won a CHS Hall of Honor Scholarship worth $1,500. Her parents are Glenn and Diane Roebuck of Davenport. She will be a student at Davidson College this fall. Michaela Swift of Central won the Marie Linky Powell Scholarship worth $1,000. She also won a Carol Herring Scholarship worth $500. Her mother's Monica Swift of Davenport, who is here tonight, and Michaela will attend St. Ambrose University in the fall. Emily Shy, a graduate of Central High, won a Jerry Juergens Scholarship worth $1,500. Her parents are Tom and Diane Shy of Davenport. She is going to Augustana College in the fall. Jack Minch of Central also won a Jerry Juergens Scholarship for $1,500. His parents are Marion Peters and Elizabeth Minch. He will attend Iowa Central Community College. Alex Christensen of West High School was awarded the George Weiss Memorial Scholarship for $500. His parents are Ken and Susan Christensen of Davenport. He's going to both Scott Community College and Western Illinois in the fall. Going to be a busy guy. Sequin Gatlin of Central won the CHS Hall of Honor Hester Memorial Scholarship worth $1,500, along with the Buttleman Arbisser Journalism Scholarship. His mother is Cynthia Gatlin of Davenport. He started at Iowa State University today, so he can't be here. Busy guy. He's majoring in biology and journalism. Amanda Taylor of Central won the CHS Hall of Honor Myers Memorial Scholarship for $1,500. Her mother is Deb Taylor of Davenport, and she will enroll at the University of Wisconsin at Platteville. Alex Schwann of Central won a Hane Fujiwara Weiss Memorial Scholarship for music for $1,000. His mother is Sarah Swisher of Davenport, and he's going to attend the University of Northern Iowa. Stephanie Zeidler also won a Fujiwara Weiss Scholarship for $1,000. Her parents are Robert and Judy Zeidler of Davenport. Welcome. She will study at Iowa State University. Jessica Welzer of Central won a CHS Hall of Honor Scholarship for $1,500. Her parents are Ronald and Dana Welzer of Davenport. She will enroll at the University of Iowa. Daphne Cornish of Central won a CHS Hall of Honor Scholarship, the Keith Jorgens Memorial, for $1,500. Her parents are Mark and Julie Cornish of Davenport. She will attend Washington University in St. Louis. Rachel Wintz of West High School won a Johnson School Scholarship worth $500. She is the daughter of Matt and Lisa Wintz of Davenport and will study at the University of Northern Iowa in the fall. Another Johnson School Scholarship went to Sydney Buckles of West High School. Her mother is Brenda Jordal Buckles of Davenport, and she will attend Coe College. Margaret Van Camp of Central won a DSF Future Educator Scholarship for $500. Her parents are Albert and Patty Van Camp of Davenport, and she will enroll at Iowa State. Adam Earp of North won a DSF Future Educator Scholarship for $500. He is a son of Charles and Anna Earp of Davenport and will attend St. Ambrose University in the fall. Seth Stubbe of West High School won the $1,500 Brian Keppy Memorial Scholarship. His parents are Sean and Dara Stubbe of Davenport. He will be studying at Iowa State University. Eric Sparks of Central won a Betty Nelson Career Technical Scholarship worth $300. His parents are John and Sue Sparks of Davenport. He's going to study at DMACC in Des Moines. Jacob Walsh of Central also won a Nelson Scholarship for $300. His parents are Daniel and Linda Walsh of Davenport, and he's going to study at Iowa Central Community College. Natalie Witt of Central won another Nelson Scholarship for $300. She is the daughter of Mike and Darla Witt of Davenport, and she'll be studying at Kirkwood Community College. North High grad Zachary Westerhoff won a Nelson Scholarship for $600. He's going to study at Scott Community College. His mother is Jennifer Ward. Caleb Hasselman, a Kimberly Center grad, is also a $600 Nelson Scholarship winner. His mother is Jerry Hasselman, and he will study at Scott Community College. Justin Bailey from West won a Nelson Scholarship for $300. His mother is Pam Bailey of Davenport, and he will study at Scott Community College. Tyler Leitner from West won a $300 Nelson Scholarship and plans to study at Kirkwood Community College. His parents are Jeff and Michelle Leitner. Last but not least, Christopher Burney, a West grad, is the winner of the $300 Brad Peck Memorial Scholarship. He is the son of Dennis and Nancy Burney, and he plans to attend Iowa State University. I would remind all of you scholarship winners, I need, except for you Hall of Honor winners, I need verification of enrollment at the schools in the next few weeks so that we can process the checks in August. That's the good part. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to offer these folks some applause. Maybe you should offer these folks a round of applause too. What do you think? And now I could ask you students to step behind the school board, kind of pack it in there. We're going to get a picture. This is always an exercise in flexibility. All right. Why don't you do kind of a sideways stance? Yeah. There you go. Okay, we're close. Come on, back in over here. And then you're at a pep rally, and it really doesn't matter. Yeah, this works better. We got you. Thank you.
There's a few people back there taking pictures.
Oh, okay, wait a minute. Let me get out of the way. You look at the back of my head. Step on up and get a good shot. Okay, that concludes our remarks. Thank you so much for having us each year. This is a thrill for us. And we'll dismiss the scholarship folks so that you can go ahead with the rest of your meeting. Thank you so much. Yes, I've told them all. Like a dorm assignment or yeah. Your class schedule.
I'm not sure because I know Larry better.
I'll be there in just a couple of minutes.
Sam looks like a secretary in this way.
Thanks.
Larry's. Yay. I got to say this. He took about a third the time of that lady. Remember that lady? I forgot her name. Oh, Lola. Yeah, she went on forever and ever. That was horrible. He did a good job.
Okay. All right, great.
All right, do you want a business card?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Norm, don't leave yet. Why don't you stay up there a minute? What's that? Yeah, but next year you shouldn't dismiss them quite so quickly.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Duly noted.
That's all right. I just I wanted to thank you, Norm, for all the work that you do in this and other activities on behalf of the Davenport Schools Foundation, and even though the students have left and the parents have left, I think it's such a it's a neat time, and it's a great part of the whole year when we're able to participate in this with you and to see what's going on with some of these great students. And so so I wanted to take a moment to thank not only you, but to thank the students and especially their parents as well.
Right.
So even though it's in absentia.
No, it's okay. I will convey the message. And,
Okay, very good.
appreciate it very much,
Okay, but
but
thanks a lot.
we do it because we love it.
Yep.
We really do. And to see the pride and the love in this room, this is my favorite day of the year in this job. And there are a lot of good ones.
Yeah,
This is the best.
it
Thanks.
is great. Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay.
All right, we will move on to the rest of our meeting. I wanted to note that Director Sherwood is participating by phone. The phone is right here, and he'll be somewhat connected through. He will be connected through Director Crumwitty's microphone. I am going to change a little bit of the agenda. It will probably be almost unnoticeable, but on the other items requiring action, I'm going to reverse the order of D and E. So E, the attendance centers policy, will come before D, the district diversity plan, when we get to that point. I think, that being said, we'll move on with communications. June 11th, 6:30 to 8 p.m., Community Workshop 5, Central High Cafeteria. June 24th, 7 p.m., regular meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. June 25th, 6:30 to 8 p.m., Community Workshop 6, Central High Cafeteria. July 1st, 5:30 p.m., Committee of the Whole meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. July 3rd, 4 p.m., Policy Committee, ASC Executive Boardroom. July 8th, first day to file nomination papers for school board election on September 10th of 2013. July 8th, 7 p.m., regular meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. July 22nd, 7 p.m., regular meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. Next is open forum for community input. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. President will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. The board is appreciative of the community's interest in our deliberation regarding school boundaries and open enrollment. We value input that will allow us to make a thoughtful decision in the educational best interest of our students. However, remarks that reflect negatively upon specific schools or disparage the students and staff assigned to those schools will be called out of order, and the speaker will be asked to conclude their remarks immediately. We have a number of open forum requests, although it's it only looks like about 5 or 6. And we'll allow 2 minutes for each open forum request tonight. We'll start with Susan Lowe. After Susan will be Dan Kivlin, Robert Saul, Bruce Atkinson, Tim Eckert, Clyde Mayfield. Start with Susan. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Susan Lowe, 4905 Woodland Avenue, Davenport, Iowa. I'm here tonight to just say thank you to all of the board members and Dr. Tate for all of the information that the community's been given in regard to what has been a very difficult issue, I'm sure, for all of you to struggle with. And also to say, again, that I support the availability of open enrollment between high schools for a number of reasons that I have stated before you other times. But I just want to say thank you for your consideration, and I hope that you vote to continue to have open enrollment between high schools for our students.
Thank you, Susan. Next is Dan Kivlin.
Hello, my name is Dan Kivlin, 1028 West 60th Street, Davenport, Iowa. First thing I want to do, I want to cover 2 topics, hopefully one very briefly and one maybe in a little bit more detail. The first one is just a thank you for reconsideration of the Harrison School boundaries. It's very important to us, and we're very happy that you did take the time to reconsider those options, and it is appreciated. What I really wanted to talk to in addition was what came up during an open enrollment discussion last meeting. It was brought about that a lot of specialty courses are ones where students are going from one school to another. And I scratched my head a little bit because back at home I was filling out a form so that my son could go to German 2 class, but that German 2 class is only offered at West, and he's going to be a sophomore at Davenport North High next year. In addition to that class, there's another class that he is not going to take that is an engineering class that is only offered at Davenport West. The reason for that is because he doesn't want to spend 25% of his school time in a different school than his home school. So I thought there was a little confusion with that. What I think would be beneficial is if a simple document was created that said, hey, here's the courses down one side where we're shipping students from one school to another. And let's see where they're coming from so we can get an idea of exactly who's getting shipped where for what courses. Maybe that document already exists. I'm kind of guessing it probably does. I scoured the website. I couldn't find it. But I think that would be beneficial to Dr. Tate, the board, and the community to understand exactly where our kids are coming and going to. And I think it would be a very simple document to put together. In addition, I would also like the board to consider maybe some sort of electronic learning, something where the students don't have to leave the school they're in. They can learn remotely. This would be beneficial for courses like German 2, where there isn't anything specific, any instruments that they need like welding or that case, something electronic that they can use remotely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dan. Next is Robert Saul.
Hi, I'm Robert Saul, 1320 West 60th Street in Davenport. I just wanted to thank the board for their consideration on the Harrison boundary proposal and Dr. Tate for reconsidering his proposal. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Robert, you got up there so fast, I didn't know if you gave your address.
I did.
You did? Okay, thank you.
1320 West 60th.
All right, thank you. Next is Bruce Atkinson.
No magic tricks this time. I'm Bruce Atkinson, and I live at 1521 College Avenue. I graduated from Bettendorf High School when the residents were more blue collar. I learned on an alumni tour that 2 of every 7 students, about 28%, open enroll to Bettendorf. Central has a larger fraction of out-of-home area students in one department. 1 of every 3 students in Central's music programs come from outside Central's district. Students come from West and North. My son's prom date attends Central even though her home is in the Pleasant Valley School District. All Davenport school districts are well-mixed and quantifiable economic and ethnic measures. This was stated in a previous board meeting. Also, present school populations are close to the predicted school sizes with hardened borders. If the distribution isn't broken, please don't fix it. During the March 25th school board meeting, it was explained that the transfer policy, as written, is to keep a lid on transfers out of the district. But the total number of students wanting transfer is a fraction of 1% of the total school student population. Ignore them. They're holding a potentially larger number of students hostage. Abandon this race to mediocrity. Keep high school enrollment flexible. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Next is Tim Eckert.
Tim Eckert, 2550 East 32nd Street in Davenport. I want to begin with reminding you what your mission statement says. Enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. I want to remind you that diversity enhances education. It doesn't replace it. Your primary mission is to provide a quality education. That said, if you restrict transfers and elective classes, you only have 2 basic choices then. One is to offer more specialized programs in each school, which I know you don't want to consider how much that would cost, or you leave everything exactly as it is, and that means that students are left with fewer choices. They are left with choices only for what that school offers. But if you allow transfers and elective classes, then each school can continue to have their own specialties, and that's good not just for that school, but for the entire district, because then everything that the district offers is open to the students. It provides so many more opportunities. And allowing transfers means that the schools won't be spending extra money to build up new programs that another school in the district already has. My wife and I have 3 kids, and our oldest just finished his freshman year at West. Now, we homeschool, and we chose to open enroll at West. We live in Central's district, but we open enrolled at West because West has the Project Lead the Way classes, and they also have a world-class robotics group. That is what my kids are interested in. All 3 of my kids are interested in engineering and robotics. If you pass this diversity plan that would confine us to Central's district, unfortunately, I can guarantee you that our kids won't be going to Central because Central doesn't offer those classes. Central doesn't have the robotics group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Next is Clyde Mayfield.
Thank you. Clyde Mayfield, 430 West 16th, in Davenport, of course. First, I'd like to applaud you for what you're doing. I know you're making tough choices, and I know you're doing it for the best of the school district, but at the same time, there are some things I think that have an adverse effect on our students and families. For one, when you talk about open enrollment, it's great you're going to have it for high school, but without transportation, is it really equal? I mean, those that have and those that have not will not be treated fairly. And I think that's an important factor that needs to be addressed, because we're supposed to be about equity for everyone. And I don't think that's equity when some can afford it and some can't. So transportation is important. The second aspect that I would like to speak about is some of our schools on the junior high school level. I know my kids went to the local neighborhood school. And unfortunately, I would say 3/4 of the kids in that neighborhood are going to other schools, whether it be Williams, Wood, or Sudlow. And the question again is it fair that those schools don't have open enrollment and they have to go to that neighborhood school, which they may feel is underperforming? Now, it might be perception whether it's underperforming or not. But the question is, do parents have a right to their kids to have what they perceive a quality education? And I thought that's what it was about when it comes to the school district. Education, number one. And that means parents need to be supporting it and want their kids to be in a place where they feel, whether we feel or not, but where they feel that they can support and get the results they want for their kids. And I think if we just restrict them on the junior high level as being proposed, I think there's going to be a group of people, again, that are treated unfairly. And the test scores will show that in the future if it doesn't show it already. Thank you. One last thing. When it comes to teaching, I believe we have not taught until they have learned. I don't care which child it is, where they're living at, or whatever it is. We have not done our job until they have that quality education. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. And thank you, everybody that participated in open forum this evening. We'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the consent agenda as presented by the administration.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Zamora.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Yes, I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent for a minute to make an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce Garrett Egel, who is our new principal you just approved for Williams Intermediate School. He is the principal in Sherrard High School in Illinois. So, Garrett, thank you for being with us. We look forward to a great association.
Thank you for that, Superintendent Tate. We'll move on to approval of bills.
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the following resolution as recommended by the administration for the adoption of bills. The resolution is as follows. Resolved that all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods May 23rd, 2013 through June 5th, 2013, with one following voided check, that being check number 307340, payable to Brown Industries in the amount of $1,297, reason being that the check was voided and reissued.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? We'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFow.
Yes.
Director Zamora.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to the superintendent report.
Mr. President, I have nothing this evening.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to other items requiring action. May I have a motion regarding approval of plans and specs for the west sound and dimming system?
Mr. President,
Director Robertson.
I move that we accept the administrative recommendation and approve the plan and specification as presented for the sound and dimming system project at West High School.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the proposed project as published in the Quad City Times on May 31st, 2013. Anyone wishing to speak on this project, please step forward to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Zamora.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding contract for two-year literacy plan for K2?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve a contract with the 95% Group Incorporated in the amount of $166,493 for consulting and professional development services for implementation of the two-year literacy plan for grades K through 2 in 11 elementary buildings during the 2013-2014 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
yeah, I'd just like to ask, I'd like to be assured that the services that we're contracting out are not available through the AEA at no cost.
Absolutely, they are not. This is a very specialized group that we have vetted for quite a while, and I've got Beth Evans that's going to come up, Mr. Sherwood, but what this is, we're doing response to intervention or instruction. This is a response to diagnostics. We realize that we have everything we need when we're teaching reading with our letters training we're doing and with our dibbles, but we got to a point that we could diagnose what the problem was, but we didn't know what the next step was. So this is training in what those next steps are, as well as very specialized kits that each elementary school will have and will be available to each teacher. So when they find out that art needs this certain specific additional training or learning, then they go to this kit, they bring it out, they spend some time with me for a few hours or days, and then we move on. So Beth, why don't you go ahead and explain a little bit more about that and why it's so special that we need to go out for it.
It is. What we've done is we've trained the teachers and given them the background knowledge and the foundational skills to work with all students in the classroom. But then we have this population of students that we didn't know specifically what skills they needed intervention on. And so what we've done is we've consulted with the 95% group, and they have a screening diagnostic tool that we can administer to kids. They do have a preschool version, and we can use it into the middle schools as well. So pre-K through 8, we use their screening and diagnostic tool, and it will help us pinpoint the skill deficits for these students. And then the additional resources that we have purchased, we can go in with those, the lesson library or the manipulative kit, and we can actually teach lessons that they've already outlined for the teacher and go through to improve those areas of deficit for the students. We have rolled out a multi-year plan where we started with the achievement matrix that came out after the last Iowa assessment in the last school year. We used that to initiate our cohorts that we would go through. So we have essentially a 2-year rollout before all schools will have the training and the materials in place.
Okay.
Was that sufficient, Director Sherwood?
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Director Crumwoody.
We've had some questions about the reading recovery program, and with this recommendation, is this part of what we're replacing reading recovery with?
This came about when we started the district, the language arts literature non-negotiables, and so this was a piece of that same initiative.
Okay.
So it is, we would be able to target more students with this program or this intervention than we were able to with reading recovery.
So what other pieces are we putting in place instead of having reading recovery?
They will have, most buildings have initiated a walk-to intervention model where all students will be receiving some form of intervention. It's going to be more of a tiered intervention, so some students will be working in a very small group of no more than 3 to 5 students where they will receive the 95% group. Could be the phonics lesson library, this very targeted intervention, and then the other students would be doing maybe enrichment if they do not have those same skill deficits, or they could be working on other skill deficits in maybe a larger group setting.
Director Crumry, the main thing we did with the monies for the reading recovery was every elementary school will have half a coach, but every elementary school will have a reading interventionist. We felt very, very strongly that we need to do that for all students in all the schools. So that was the primary exchange.
Okay.
It was a difficult decision to make. We hated to do that, but we were trying to serve more children and more schools.
Mm-hmm. But this will also add to that
Absolutely.
support? Okay, thank you.
Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
That proprietary screening process that you talked about that belongs to 95%, is that probably one of the most expensive parts of this program?
Actually, it is not. The screening tool per building is only about $350 depending on the building size, and that gives them the rights to, it's an electronic document that they can then print off the copies that they would need. The most expensive piece is going to be the lesson library, and that is 70 to 90 actual lessons and all the materials that are needed to teach those lessons to 5 students. So that's the most expensive piece.
And we've used 95% in the past?
We've just started with summer school. So we just had first trainings with summer school last week, and they were very excited about it. We have started using the screening diagnostic tool for about the past 3 months. We've been using that.
Okay, thank you.
Teachers were using that and the reading specialists without the actual kits at that point, but it was still an excellent tool to help them figure out the skill deficit area, and then they were able to try to locate materials on their own to work in those skill deficit areas, but that took a lot of their additional time that they didn't have to try to find those materials.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Thank you, Beth. We'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director Zamora.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bid for secured entrances remodeling for Smart, Buffalo, Garfield, Sudlow, and Hayes?
Mr. President,
Director Zamora.
I recommend we approve the lowest responsive bid received from the Swanson Construction Company for $295,000 for the secured entrances remodeling project at Smart, Buffalo, Garfield, Sudlow, and Hayes schools.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. President.
Director Robertson.
Mr. Martin, will you come to the mic, please? The question I have for you is more about clarity for the people that are in the audience and also the people that are at home watching. Would you explain what the intent and what we are trying to do with the secured entrance?
Well, we're creating a secure vestibule at the entrance to the school to control access to the rest of the academic building. We want them to come directly into the office, that is with the exception of Smart and Sudlow, because their offices are on the second floor. Sudlow is a little more difficult because it is in the middle of the building, where Smart will be able to be directly input because they are right at the top of the stairs from the front entrance. So we are making it more difficult for people to get to the academic wing without checking in first, and so people know who's there, why they're there, and where they're going.
So, Mr. Martin, are we close to having a situation where when you access the building, you can only go to a confined area without being let into the rest of the building?
Correct. They would go to the office first, and then the office would give them approval with a visitor's tag and then allow them to go to the rest of the building.
Well, I want to thank you and all the people that have been involved in this, because this is something that I have really asked for a long time, that when people go into a building, that they can only get into the main entrance. And then we know that they're there and where they are in the building. So again, I certainly appreciate the effort and time being put into this. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? We'll call for the vote. Director Zamora.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. As I noted before, I want to move on to item E. May I have a motion regarding policy 501.11, attendance centers.
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the policy provided by the Policy Committee, Policy 501.11, as discussed at the May 28th board meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Director DeFau.
I move to amend Director Kluhl's motion and request that the board approve the original recommendation of the superintendent in regard to attendance center policy 501.11 as presented at the May 28th meeting.
Second.
Excuse me, I'm just writing down what's happening here.
Well, Mr. President,
Director Zamora.
yeah, I'm not sure that that's an amendment because it drastically alters the actual motion. Doesn't add to it, it changes it.
Well, that's why, excuse me a minute, let me just keep everything straight here. Director DeFau, can you explain again exactly what your amendment is?
I would move to amend the original motion so that the language of policy 501.11 attendance centers would revert back to the original recommendation as presented by the superintendent on May 27th.
And Director Zamora, you're expressing that you believe that it's too significant a change to be considered an amendment.
That would be my opinion, because what it's doing is exactly reversing the amendment, reversing the motion. If I'm reading right, since we haven't been real specific about it.
Do we have copies of the original amendment or the original policy that you're referencing, Director DeFau?
I did not bring any with me, but the only item that would change would be item 1 and item 2 in the amended policy. Item 1, which was that parents would be required to enroll their student in the attendance center, in the building in which attendance center they reside. And then following on the other items, it would, well, actually, item 2 in this recommendation was the original item 1. So it would read, parents and guardians are responsible for enrolling students in the school within the boundary of the attendance center area in which the student resides. If it's discovered that the student is attending the school outside his or her attendance area, the parent or guardian will be directed to remove the student, etc. The only change to this policy from the original recommendation was that item 1 was added, and in the following items, elementary and middle school parents was incorporated as opposed to all parents and guardians.
All right. I think I understand. I'm not sure that it's clear to all the board members, though, what the recommendation that's being made by Director DeFau is relative to, because if you amend this policy that's before us, then you can do it by not referencing the original, but by changing the wording, which is what you just did, right?
Well, that's my recommendation, is that I would like the board to consider the original proposal as it was presented by the superintendent at the May 27th board meeting.
Okay, Mr. President, if I understand correctly, what she is asking is that the motion that states that enrollment at the high school would be open, she's asking that it be closed and limited only to the high school of residence, and that's an exact reversal of the motion before us. Am I correct?
I would like us to consider the original recommendation that was presented by Dr. Tate. Yes.
I think that, it's my opinion, that would be a separate motion. Again, I'm not an expert on Robert's rules, but
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm not either. However, I think there's enough of the motion, or I'm sorry, of the policy included in both that I'm going to let it exist as a motion to amend at this point. Is there any additional discussion on this proposed amendment?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
it seems to me past practice of this board has been if there's a concern about policy that is being recommended, it goes back to the policy committee and then they bring it back to us. I'm not recalling where we amend a recommended policy. That's really confusing to me. It came out of the policy committee, and if this board is not satisfied with that policy, then shouldn't it go back to the policy committee again?
Mr. President, I would say that we might take a vote on whether or not it should go back to the policy committee and whether or not the board's satisfied with the motion as presented.
Yeah, I intend to move forward with this. I'm hopeful that this doesn't go back to the policy committee. And I'm confident that the board will find a way to move forward. Is there any additional discussion on this amendment?
Yes.
Oh, okay, Director DeFau.
And if I ask for a bit of indulgence, I've written down some comments because I'm really quite under the weather right now, and I want to make sure that I do not overlook anything that I would like to address as it relates to the attendance center policy and why I believe that open transfer is not the right decision for our school district. So with that being said, I've spent a lot of time trying to determine where to begin. And so I'm starting with my beginning, and like many people in the audience, I first paid attention to school board governance during a contentious decision-making process. It was at a time when the district had recommended the closing of Grant and Johnson schools, and I became an active opponent of that proposal. And it's fitting that Brenda Jordahl Buckles is in the audience this evening because she and I, with Alan Gard, Mike Schulte, Donnell Williams, and a variety of other Grant and Johnson parents, spent months lobbying, petitioning, and presenting options at open forums. At that time, one lone board member was opposed to closing the schools. That was Pat Zamora. I was amazed at her ability to remain steadfast and composed. I developed a great respect for her and wondered how she did it. And unfortunately, I've come to understand that all too well. I've thought about that time a lot in the last 6 months, wondering who among you might step forward to run in light of another contentious decision. In retrospect, however, there's something that strikes me about that time. The board members that were seated at that time were willing to make a hard decision in what they believed was the educational best interest of students. It wasn't a decision that I agreed with or supported, but it took strength of character to make that decision. And so I commend Jim Hester, Steve Hunter, Steve Emming, Rich Kluhl, Mavis Lee, Susan Lowe, and Pat Zamora for their ability to step back from the emotion of that highly charged debate and make a decision they believed was in the educational best interest of students. So let me tell you, I never envisioned a time when I would express respect for that decision-making process. However, there are many things that have happened in the last 6 months that I never would have anticipated. I've heard board members dismiss parents' opinions based upon their zip code. I've heard those same board members insist that parent opinions expressed 6 years ago should take priority over those expressed today. I've seen board members vote against proposed renovations at our buildings based upon the status of Central's auditorium and pool and the need for equitable facilities. And I've seen those same board members insist that Central's pool and auditorium must be bigger and better than the facilities at our other buildings while arguing for said equity. I've seen student board members post negative tweets on Twitter either during board meetings or immediately thereafter that criticize speakers advocating for the end of open transfer. I've seen families I thought were above it all make the same threats they condemned Northeast Davenport for when change knocked on their door. And lastly, I've seen the one person I thought would always advocate for the educational best interest of students bow to what he called the voice of the privileged minority. Shame on us. Which brings us to this evening, and when we began this conversation 6 months ago, I was guardedly optimistic. I believed that if presented the facts, the board would recognize that the open transfer policy had a negative impact on our students in the district. So I set out to build a case, point by point, to refute the reasons people cite for maintaining open transfer. When approached by individuals who wanted to express their opposition to open transfer, I advised them, don't make it about your building. Make it about the educational best interest of students. You see, that was the beginning, when I was naive and hopeful. It wasn't long before I realized the facts weren't going to play a large role in this conversation. That was roughly the time that Director Kluhl made his comment that it's a free market economy and North should do for North. I find that admonition ironic, as free market economies, by their definition, do not establish trade policies which purposefully give favor to a specific supplier of goods. North has done for North, but more about that later. For now, I'd like to speak about the recruiting of students. The employees of this district can deny it until they're blue in the face, but we all know recruiting occurs. When searching for a cello teacher 11 years ago, I was given the name of a district employee. The first question I was asked was, will you enroll your son at Central if I accept him as a student? During the time I have sat on the board, I have seen student athletes bounce from school to school because they don't like their playing time, and have seen a transferring coach blatantly pull the majority of a team from their home school to play for another. One athletic director after another has stood at the podium and told us of the detrimental impact open transfer has on athletic programming. Parents have stood at the podium and told us the conversations between middle school students about which high school they are going to and the detrimental impact it has to their sense of community. Teachers have stood at the podium and told us they have had to actively recruit students who reside within their own boundaries to persuade them not to transfer, and have spoken about the detrimental impact open transfer has on their buildings. Every 26 transfer students represents a lost class section, leading to reduced resources for our students. Recruiting makes it impossible to establish feeder systems or to have continuity in curricular planning and FTEs from year to year as enrollments fluctuate. Something I haven't seen considered as the negative impact recruiting has on the student body is the impact on the receiving building. You see, there are a finite number of positions on varsity athletic rosters, in show choirs or AP classes for that matter. In theory, every recruit that enters a program has the potential to take a position away from a student who legitimately lives in a school's attendance center, which is why I recently asked for the number of starting varsity athletes who are playing for a school other than their home school. I'd like to present an overview of those facts at this time. For our football programs, 28% of Central's varsity roster is transfer students. 20% of North's varsity roster are transfer students, and 8% of West. For our baseball programs, 58% of the Central varsity roster is comprised of transfer students, while 8% at North and 8% at West. For boys basketball, 57% of the Central varsity roster is transfer students. 14% is North and 7% at West, 71% at West. For boys soccer, 30% of Central's varsity roster is transfer, none at North, and 8% at West. For boys track and field, 20% of the Central varsity roster is transfer students, 0% at North, 13% at West. For girls basketball, 29% of the Central varsity roster is transfer students, 14% at North, 29% at West. For girls volleyball, 62.5% of the Central varsity roster is transfer students, 0% at North and 0% at West. For girls soccer, 58% of the Central varsity roster is transfer students, 0% at North, 17% at West. For girls track and field, 27% of Central's varsity roster is transfer students, 0 at North, 7% at West. And for softball, 30% of the Central varsity roster is transfer students, 0 at North and 17% at West. In total, of the 125 student-athlete positions that were studied, and it was consistent from building to building, 47 or 38% of Central starting varsity athletes, 8 or 6% of North starting varsity athletes, and 18 or 14% of West starting varsity athletes were transfer students. I'll reiterate. Open transfer reduces the opportunities of students living within a school's prescribed boundaries who must now compete with students recruited to attend their buildings to participate in specific sports or programs. Several weeks ago, I read a statement in which I spoke about the transfer of student athletes and the fact that it isn't about the win-loss record on the field, it's about the win-loss record in the classroom. Some of those items bear repeating. What do we know about student athletes? We know they're leaders on and off the field. We know they perform better academically. In a report by the district athletic director, student athletes outperform non-athletes in the classroom consistently. We know they are also more likely to graduate due to increased school engagement resulting from athletic participation. So what happens when academically gifted, engaged students leave a building en masse? The lack of athletes has led to the cancellation of some athletic programs, for example, North football for sophomores this past year, leading to a disparity in programming between the buildings and unequal opportunities for students. As win-loss records and programming diminish, the athletic reputation of programs suffer, and the reputation leads to even more students to consider transferring, which guarantees programs will continue to suffer. While more difficult to measure, you can believe there's a curricular impact in the classroom as well. Less student enrollment results in fewer teachers assigned to buildings, fewer sections of classes resulting in scheduling challenges, fewer students in AP classes, and fewer building resources as site budgets are based on student enrollment. We cannot delude ourselves that open enrollment does not have a profound and real impact on the educational opportunities of students throughout this district. Which brings me to programming. Many people, even those at this board table, will contend that students must be allowed to transfer because all schools do not offer the same programs. Project Lead the Way, ProStart, the Business Academy, ROTC, all would be examples of such programming. Let me assure the uninformed that all of our high schools offer band, orchestra, and show choir, and all of our high schools offer the same athletic programs. I transferred my student for a specific program has become code for I have heard negative things about that school and don't want to send my child there. This statement has frequently been followed with, all of our high schools are good, but, and if you don't allow me to retain my ability to choose, I will leave the district taking my student and my state aid with me. Which brings me again to the beginning. I believe a case has been made that proves unequivocally that ending open transfer is in the best educational interest of our students, all of our students. The district is quite able to enforce boundaries while allowing the flexibility that is required for students to transfer for specific programming, to transfer if there is a health or safety consideration, or for no child left behind requirements. In fact, Dr. Tate's policy recommendation allowed for just that. Last week, Pat said the elephant in the room was North. If that's the case, then I need to disabuse the audience of a few misconceptions about North, which I believe are intentionally perpetrated in some cases to the advantage of other high schools. North's fine arts programs are inferior to those of other high schools. Well, North had 12 members in the Quad City Youth Symphony, the largest number from any Davenport school. Cellist Jacob Warner was a featured soloist at the Youth Symphony Spring Concert and was the recipient of the Youth Symphony's highest scholarship. North High School's band, symphony orchestra, string orchestra, and women's ensemble each received Division I ratings at state large group this spring. North placed more all-state vocalists and instrumentalists than any other Davenport school, 7 vocalists, 2 orchestra members, and 2 band students, with Dylan Bile, who was here earlier this evening, being recognized as the best percussionist in the state of Iowa. Jacob Warner and the North High School Women's Ensemble were named Best in Center at the state small group contest this spring and were invited to perform at the Best in Center showcase in Ames. The North Drama Department was selected to perform at International Thespian Festival for the second time in 3 years and has been nominated once again to perform at the American High School Theatre Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland. And North High graduates are currently performing in all 3 Iowa University marching bands. Second item, North's athletic programs are inferior to those of other students. Boys bowling has had 3 straight state appearances and were state champions in 2011 and 13. 2 North bowlers had perfect games in the last 2 meets, and the team was also MAC champions in 2012. North's baseball team was the only MAC team to make it to state in 2012. North's Alicia Jones repeated as Class 4A state champion in the 400 meters this spring. North had 45 academic all-conference athletes in the fall of 2013 alone. And in the fall of 2013, the boys golf team was awarded the Distinguished Achievement with a team GPA of 3.45, while the football cheerleaders, girls swimming, and volleyball teams all achieved Academic Excellence Achievement Awards. North High is an unsafe building. Pre-expulsion and disciplinary meeting data that was presented in our packets this afternoon demonstrate that North has the least pre-expulsion and discipline hearings than any of our other high schools. Furthermore, by the principal's report, altercations among students are not only among the lowest in the district, but among the lowest in the state. Lastly, North High School's academic programs are inferior to those of other high schools. Our curriculum is predominantly the same from high school to high school in Davenport, as curriculum is established by leaders at this Achievement Service Center. Exceptions for specialized curriculum that are offered in only one building would include those that I referenced earlier, and for which provisions would be allowed in terms of transfer. North has advanced placement classes in calculus, biology, English, studio art, human geography, Spanish, French, chemistry, stats, U.S. history, and government, as well as online AP course offerings. In 2012, the AP Calculus class had 92.3% of its students pass, with 46% earning a 1 rating, which is the top score. North's AP Calc has the highest scores in the district over the last 5 years, and biology follows as suit as well. North High School teacher Laura McCreary is a 2-time recipient of the National Association of Biology Teachers Outstanding Biology Teacher Award for the state of Iowa, while Terry Weiss won the Excellence in Science Teaching Award for Earth Sciences. Let me say unequivocally that North High School isn't broken. It simply needs to be recognized for what it's accomplished. Those who speak about a negative climate or culture at North obviously haven't visited the building in years, if at all. Provisions have been made to address the programming needs that have been referenced by this board, and for the health and safety concerns of students, and for No Child Left Behind transfers. I think it is criminal that we've spent the last 6 months and are arriving at the beginning.
Mr. President.
Director Zamora.
You finished?
I am finished.
I would say that I have immense respect for Mrs. Defau's opinion. I don't know that any of us have ever said that North was broken or inferior in any way. I agree with her completely that North is an awesome school. I just support the idea of choice and options for young adults.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
Well, I too appreciate Director Defau's time spent on preparing these prepared comments. It's an indication of the dedication that school board members have for what they're doing. And I think one of the wonderful things about this board is that it is 7 board members doing their best to try to arrive at decisions which best forward all 16,000 students in our school district. And I appreciate the differences. We all arrive at those decisions in different ways. I think that some of the discussion the last several months has been hurtful. I think that there's been some civil war action that's been created amongst the schools, and I think that's very unfortunate. And it's not that we are board members elected to districts, specific districts within the district. We're all at-large board members representing all of our schools. I think some of the comments that you made about the hurtful things that have been said about North are true. I've heard them. I've listened. I think it's unfortunate. I think that we need to do everything in order to try to make sure that all of our schools have equal opportunities. And I think North, having been built as a middle school, has had a deficit. They've started from less than West and Central High School, but I think over time, this board has spent a lot of time, resources, money, and time in finding out ways to make North High School the school that it needs to be, to attract the students that it should be, because the programming at North is every bit as good as West and Central. And so my intent as a board member is to try to think through all of these things as clearly as I can. And if I use terms like free market economy, I hope that you understand, and I hope that the public understands what I'm talking about, is that we all will survive and thrive based on the vitality that we express in our lives and in our organizations. I think one of the things that Dr. Tate has brought to us is the district of distinction, and within the district of distinction, there are going to be schools of distinction. And I think Central is a distinct school. It's been around for over 100 years. It has a culture. They've earned it. West, somewhat less, and North is the kid on the block, the new kid on the block. And we need to do whatever we can do to try to help North along. If the reputation is good, we have a number of schools that have reputations that are less than stellar. We all believe on this board that those reputations are unwarranted, because we believe all our schools are good schools, are great schools. That's where we need to spend our time, I think. But the important thing, and this is my last comment, is that we work for all of our students in all of our schools. And I think we can do that together as a board. I think we can do it. I hope so, because Davenport Community School District is a wonderful school district with a great set of board members who I've worked with for some time. And I just want to say that it does my heart good to hear you say that over time you have come to recognize the decision that was made in 2001 about closing Grant and Johnson schools. It was a terribly hard decision, but it was a decision that took a great deal of thought on many people's, in many people's lives. And a decision was to close those schools. We moved forward. The board made a decision. And I think the board will make a decision tonight, and we'll move forward. And I hope that board members and I hope the public will understand that it was done in the best interest of all of our students, for the best, and not trying to deny any.
Director Robertson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. DeFowle, for your statements tonight. I've always believed in listening to the parents. When Gabe Knight, I know he's here somewhere, when they came from Harrison and said, you know, we think that our kids should be able to go to Harrison School. And they came each board meeting and made the same presentation. So what happened? Superintendent and the board backed off and said, okay, you can attend Harrison School. At the last meeting, I also stated that if you're going to have high schools open, then to me you should have grade school and middle schools open, because parents have a sense of where they want their kids to go to school. And when we can sit here and say that it's in the best interest for kids to go to high school wherever they want to go, but then pigeonhole them into whatever elementary building we can get them in, or middle school, I don't think, that is right. I'm a firm believer, and it gets stronger each and every day, that what kids do in grade school and middle school will dictate what they're going to do in high school, because that is the learning process that gets you ready for calculus and AP classes that you're going to take, not after you get to high school and you get to make these choices. My statement all along has been is that I am opposed to opening up the high schools if you're going to close the grade school and the middle school and say that parents don't have a choice. Someone said it earlier tonight, and I don't know if it was Mr. Mayfield or not, but said that parents, whether it's true or not, believe that their kids should go to a certain school, then that becomes the reality of what they believe in terms of getting the very best education they can. So as this policy was written to support, the majority of the people that are here tonight that are on this board, I happen not to be one of them, because I'm not in favor of opening up part of the school and closing the other part. I think that it's just as important for grade school and middle school. So my statement really hasn't changed, that you open all of them up and not just high school.
Is there any additional discussion? Director Crumwoody.
Yes, very quickly. I too appreciate the time and the effort, Director DeFaw, that you put into this report. But as Director Kluhl has stated, I was elected, as all of us were elected, to represent all schools in this district. I have always been a strong supporter of North High School. As most all of you know, I principaled in that area. I supported North High School, and many of those students that you talked about tonight were students that came out of Truman Elementary School. So I feel as a board member that we represent all schools. I do feel, however, that North has not always received everything the other two high schools have, but I believe they're getting there. I think things are going so much better at North. I think you have a great administrator right now at North High School, and I think with some of the recommendations that we heard at the last committee of the whole meeting, I think some very exciting things are down the road for North. So I just want to say, and I've said it many times at this table, I very much support choice at the high schools. I think when students reach high school age, they should be able to choose any high school they want to go to. We've talked about 3. They should also be able to choose Kimberly Center if they wish. And I just feel very strongly about that. I think that as far as elementary and intermediate schools, I very much support the neighborhood school concept. Yes, we heard very strongly from the Harrison neighborhoods and some other neighborhoods as we were talking about boundaries, and I appreciate all those folks coming forward. I certainly supported their ideas and what they were presenting to us also from the Harrison area especially, and Kimberly Village. So I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time, but like I said, we need to always remember that we represent all schools in this district and all children in this district, and I will always advocate that as long as I'm on this board.
Sorry, any additional discussion? Bill, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Director DeFaw.
And I will remind my fellow board members that until this evening, I have never once presented a fact or a consideration to bring forward as related to open transfer and my opposition to it that was specific to North High School. It was always about the educational best interest of all students. And I would maintain that, perhaps we may need to revisit exactly how board members are elected, because I don't know that all of us, and I'll even if you want to throw me into that, I'll be in that too, but I don't know that any of us make decisions all the time that are in the best interest of all students.
Any additional discussion? I'm going to say a couple of things. First, to address the issue of Director Crumwitty relative to the way that policy normally moves. The way that it normally moves is correct, is that a policy comes to the board for discussion, it goes back to the committee for review, and then generally comes back to the board for approval. And that's that's how almost all policies proceed through. I have confidence that something is going to be decided tonight with respect to this policy, and if it does happen that the board says, well, we want to send it back to the committee for further clarification, then it will do that. I'm hopeful that it doesn't. Relative to this amendment, which is what we're discussing, there are a number of things, and I've been trying to think about what the amendment means while all of these discussions are taking place. And I do have to say that I appreciate the sense of consistency that would be available if we were to accept the amendment. I think that the amendment in acknowledging the superintendent's recommendation from May 27th or 8th or whenever it was, I do think that that recommendation at that time did acknowledge the diversity plan, and this policy does address the diversity plan as well. I think the only thing that happens is that the diversity plan isn't generally acknowledged if we accept the first section, which says that high school parents and guardians may enroll their students in any high school they choose, regardless of the attendance center area in which the family resides. And I do have some difficulty with that. The whole discussion on diversity plan, on the significance of diversity, the value of diversity that we've had over the last several months, and when you integrate all of that discussion and thought with our attendance centers and our transfer policies and our diversity plan and open enrollment, it's a pretty big issue, and and I should say it's a lot of big issues, and the issues are not necessarily mutually, I want to say it's more than compatible. It's more like that they aren't necessarily mutually beneficial. I planned on saying some additional words really with respect to the whole policy, and I think I'm going to reserve a few of those, and we'll get off of this amendment at this point if there's no additional discussion. Anything else? What we're going to do is vote on the amendment The amendment was made by Director DeFau, seconded by Director Robertson, and the intent of the amendment, the way that I understood it, was to strike the elementary and middle school portions of the policy and to strike the number 1 section. Is that correct? And there may be a few other changes. What you recommended was that we change it back to the original recommendation that was made by the superintendent on May 27th or 28th.
Correct.
Correct?
I have a question on that.
Director Zamora.
Does that mean then we do not do the changes to the Harrison boundaries, or that we do them?
That's totally another vote.
Yeah, I think,
Isn't that all in here?
no.
Okay.
This is just the attendance centers section. The boundaries will actually be a separate issue.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, but I appreciate the clarification. So this is only on the attendance centers. So that's what the amendment is. All right. Excuse me?
Does he understand?
Director Sherwood, is that clear to you?
Yes, she wants to substitute the previous recommendation by the superintendent for the one that's currently before the board.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We're going to call for the vote. Director, and this is only on the amendment, not on the attendance centers policy. Director, excuse me, I've got to write this down or I'll goof it up. Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
Yes.
Director Kluel.
No.
Director Zamora.
No.
Director Sherwood.
No.
Director Crumwitty.
No.
My vote is yes. Motion fails and the amendment fails. We're back into discussion on the policy, which is attendance centers, which is 501.11, as it's being presented to the board. Is there any additional discussion?
President Johansson.
Director DeFau.
I'm going to ask a little bit of indulgence by the board because I was going to make a second motion, which I don't believe, in light of Director Zamora's comments, I can do. I don't know that it would be construed as an amendment. But I would like to put forward a suggested alternative to the attendance center policy that I will share with my fellow board members, and there should be enough copies.
Excuse me, Director DeFau. I'm trying to think of parliamentarily, how we can do this.
It's just a discussion as it's relevant to the existing motion. I would like to suggest that there are other things that we could consider. It's just a discussion. It's not a motion, it's a discussion.
But the discussion has to be relevant to this policy.
It is. It's relevant to this policy in that this is this could be another way to look at this policy. I'm not making, it's just a discussion.
Mr. President, I'm going to suggest that what we're doing is just taking a giant step backward and rehashing what we've been over again and again already.
But I don't know that you can make that statement not having seen or heard what I would like to say.
How long will this take?
This is one page.
All right. So this is part of your discussion relative to this policy.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
So please disregard the first 3 lines of what's being handed out to you, because I will not be making a motion. This is my discussion relevant to this policy. So I think that there are other ways that we can look at attendance centers and meet the board's goal of ensuring choice, rather than just to say carte blanche, let's keep things the way they are. Let's retain the status quo. So what I think could be a viable alternative and something that I would pose for discussion of this policy is to affirm that the Davenport Community School District is a district of choice, and that as such it's counterintuitive to restrict school enrollment, any school enrollment, based upon prescribed attendance center boundaries. So what I think we could do as an alternative is to implement a plan that would take effect in a year, where the administration could determine the optimal A to B student ratios for elementary, intermediate, and high school populations, as well as the optimal enrollment for each attendance center and building in the district. That students would then be required to apply for enrollment at the building of their choice while indicating a second building preference. The district could specify the time in which the applications were due in order to ensure timely assignment to specific buildings. At the close of the enrollment period, the administration would determine the A and B status of applicants, and once they were identified, if those applicants exceeded the optimal building enrollment, a lottery could be conducted to determine student placement. If that was within the confines of that A to B ratio and that maximum enrollment, there wouldn't be any need to conduct a lottery, and all students would be accepted into the school of their choice. Students would then be guaranteed enrollment at the attendance center of their choice until they matriculated to the next grade level. So if you as a kindergarten student your family chose Harrison School, you would be guaranteed to stay at Harrison School until 6th grade, at which time your family would be allowed to choose the middle school of their choice and enroll you in that building, at which time in 9th grade you would again be allowed to choose what building you wanted your student to attend for high school. So year one, that would have to be done in all grade levels, but in future years it would be kindergarten, 6th and 9th grade. So, and after securing enrollment at the building of choice, then transfer could be considered based upon the health, safety, or security of students and staff, for high school students to enroll in specialized programming, just as has been discussed at this table, and for transfers which are permitted by No Child Left Behind legislation. So again, it's a different way to look at attendance centers. It's a different way to look at student enrollment. I would suggest that it meets the needs that have been presented by the community and the board in terms of ensuring parents have choice, and that those choices would be respected through the duration of the child's placement at that specific building.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any additional discussion on this policy?
Me.
Oh, Director Zamora. Sorry.
I just want to say I respect the time and work you put into providing an alternative. I do like to see alternatives, but this sounds incredibly complex. So I support the original motion.
Any additional discussion? Director Robertson.
From the conversation that I've heard, from other parents, this would be something that I would like to see, considered. And also, the time that I spent on this board, I've never heard anyone be told that their opinion could not be voiced at the board table. And we almost did that tonight. And I would hope that we would be respectful of each and every board member's opinion and let them deliver that message, at the board table rather than trying to stymie it. Thank you.
Is there any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
I too appreciate Director DeFow's additional work on this alternative, but I don't see that it's an improvement over what we have at the table.
Anything? Oh, Director DeFow.
I think it in fact is a significant improvement in that it not only provides for high school choice, but also elementary and middle school choice, which I've heard people clearly say, people at this table in fact, that limiting choice to high schools is not respecting the decisions that other parents might like to make, in fact, for their own students.
Director Crumity.
Yes, I too appreciate, again, all the work that you have gone through with this. But again, I want to remind the board why we started this conversation about boundary changes having to do with the elementary schools. And in fact, 3 elementary schools are very overcrowded. That's where we have the overcrowded issues. We don't have them in the high schools. I think by opening that up, we're going to have some other overcrowded issues in this district at the elementary level, which I certainly would not support. So I want to go back to the original recommendation and would support the original recommendation.
Director DeFau.
And I think perhaps then I wasn't clear in, when I read the suggestion, because in fact, the administration would establish the optimal enrollment for each building, as well as the optimal A to B ratio for each building. So as parents applied to enroll their student in a specific building, those 2 elements would be respected, so that we wouldn't exceed the enrollment cap as established by the administration. So if that was an 85% cap, that would be maintained, and the A to B ratio, which the administration already determines for out-of-district enrollment and is being recommended to be retained, would be utilized as well.
Director Crumity.
I understand what you're saying, Director DeFau, but with this type of a transfer situation, we would be back to a situation like we possibly would have had at Harrison if we would have followed through with that. So if you have, let's just use Harrison for example. If you fill Harrison up and cap it off, and then someone moves right across the street from Harrison, they would no longer be able to go to their own neighborhood school, which would be right across the street. That's very much a concern of mine, that if we have that type of open enrollment at the elementary level, we could have overcrowded elementary schools, folks who build those homes in those neighborhoods, and I've heard people at this board table say that, if they build the homes in those neighborhoods, buy the homes in those neighborhoods, they should be able to go to those schools. And if we fill it up with transfers coming in with an open enrollment at the elementary, then you're going to run into the same situation. You're going to have to transfer kids out of their own neighborhood school into other neighborhood school because it's capped off. And it's happening now in our district with our transfer policy, in that we know that those kinds of things aren't working very well because people move into those neighborhoods, the classes are already full, and so we have to bus them to other neighborhood schools. I don't support that type of transfer in this district. I think if you live in that neighborhood, you should be able to go to school in that neighborhood, and especially at the elementary level, because that's where we have the overcrowded conditions, not in the high schools.
Director Robertson.
We talked about this 5 years ago. I was the one that brought it up and said that Harrison is in trouble, that we need to do something because families are building out there, and I was told, we're okay. We show that they're moving someplace else. And I kept talking about they're moving in that area and we need to do something about Harrison. Now the parents have come and said, okay, we want our kids to go to school there. We're even willing to accept trailers so that our kids can go to school there. And I still don't understand how we can say that it's okay for high school kids to go wherever. And then we want to say that if I think that my kid best interest would be to go to Eisenhower, that at least they don't have a shot at going to Eisenhower as opposed to going to another school. I don't find that acceptable. I want to support the policy the way it is.
Director DeFau.
And I have every confidence that the administration could determine a proper formula by which they could anticipate incoming students and ensure that families that are within the area are still able to enroll, to apply for enrollment at those buildings. Yeah, I don't think the goal is to stuff the can like sardines, so to speak.
Anything else? Director Kluhl?
Just real shortly, in 1 or 2 minutes, I want to refer back to Director Robertson's comment about opening up all schools, high schools, middle schools, elementary schools. I had given that some strong thought. In fact, back in 2007, when we changed our enrollment policy for the high schools, at that time, I said, wouldn't this be something we want to consider down the road? I think it was a bit of heresy at the time. I think I kind of got quieted down quite quickly on that. But I've been thinking about it recently since Dr. Robertson brought it up again. I said, why not? Why wouldn't we do that? We're a district of distinction. Let's open it up and let any kid go to any school. But I in talking to people, I came to realize that I was looking at it from a rather narrow perspective of where I live in my school district, which is McKinley. And I wasn't thinking about some of the lower socioeconomic areas that we have in the district. And if we allowed students to open enroll out of some of our poorer schools, it would allow those students, parents who had more income, to transfer their students to another school, leaving those students without in a school that would be inherently, I believe, unequal, because it would be not representative of the diversity that we're looking for. So although I would like to open enroll in all of our schools, I see that it is an impractical decision that would result in further isolation of our socioeconomically deprived students.
Anything else? Director Sherwood, I'm asking you just in case you haven't been able to hear everything. Do you?
I'm fine, although there are occasionally folks aren't speaking into the microphone, and that makes it difficult, but I'm fine, thank you.
And you have nothing to say on this policy motion?
No.
Okay. There's nothing else. I just want to say a couple of things. One is, actually, this idea to me is pretty exciting. I too, back in whenever we made the change to open up the high schools, at that point in time, I voted for it. I believed it was the correct thing to do for a number of reasons. I think that Director Robertson has been consistent since that time that what's good at the high school level is good for all levels. I believe that Director Kluhl actually has, through other discussions, probably made me think that that's even a better idea than I used to think. But I think that with the idea of opening it up to all students in all attendance centers, to me it acknowledges the consistency that I think several members on the board they've talked about the importance of opening the enrollment at the high school level, and a lot of reasons are behind those. I can apply the same reasoning to students at all levels. It's really, really hard for me philosophically to say that I can allow this kind of choice at one level, but I won't allow it at another. To me, it just doesn't feel right to me philosophically to restrict that kind of choice. I do believe that the administration would be able to figure this out if we were to do it. One of the other things that, as I've thought about this over the past few months, and this idea has kind of been in the background, one of the key concepts, I guess I would say, is that this to me could be one of those big ideas. This could be one of those things that make this district really different. Sure, there are risks to be taken, and we all take risks. There are possibilities that we could increase or decrease, I should say, the diversity at certain schools. However, I believe that our policy itself addresses the A to B and B to A for students and for schools, and I believe it also references the diversity plan. So to me, this would be a great opportunity to change the way that we do things in the district. However, if there's nothing else, no other discussion, I'm going to call for the vote. Superintendent Tate.
I didn't want to enter this discussion, but I need to say, because I'm not sure where this is going, that we need to think about transportation. You need to have transportation boundaries if you don't have physical boundaries for schools, because how do we decide who gets to be transported? There will have to be restrictions. We cannot have a restriction-less transportation system. We can't afford it. If there are restrictions, I want to go to what Mr. Mayfield talked about. There are some people who can afford to go across the lines and some can't. So I just want you to think about if you're going this direction, you have got to give me time to say what is the cost going to be to you to do a transportation boundaryless district.
Director Kluhl.
Just wanted to clarify that Director Johansson's enthusiasm for allowing open enrollment at all levels of schools was created in our discussions before I was on the other side of the issue. So my eyes are open now.
And relative to the superintendent's remarks, I have thought through that, and I'm not suggesting that we have a boundary-less district relative to transportation. I think that there are approaches to addressing that issue. But it'll depend on how the vote goes with respect to this policy. If the vote is approved, if the motion is approved on the attendance centers, then that would not be a concern. If the vote fails, then this policy will definitely go back to the policy committee for reconsideration. If there's no other discussion, I'm going to call for the vote.
On the original policy.
This is the vote on the original motion. The motion was made by Director Kluhl, seconded by Director Zamora, and this is discussing policy 501.11 attendance centers, and the motion was made that and I don't know the exact wording, but that the board approve policy 501.11 as presented, and that would be the this one that is titled edited to reflect the majority opinion of the board expressed 5/28/2013. That's got some highlights in red and some purple. Everybody's familiar with it?
I'll understand that.
Excuse me?
Does he understand?
And you understand, Bill, what we're voting? I'm sorry, Director Sherwood?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Zamora.
Yes.
Director Robertson.
No.
Director DeFau.
No.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
And my vote is no. Motion carries. This policy has passed as written. Move on to the district diversity plan. May I have a motion regarding the district diversity plan?
Mr.
Mr. President.
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the attached change to the Davenport Community School District Diversity Plan adopted February 11th of 2008. The only change being additional language on the page titled, quote, Diversity Plan, Reference Chart and School Ratio, end quote.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
President Johansson.
Director DeFau.
I move to amend the motion to revert to the original policy or plan that was presented May 28th, 2013, which again, if we can scroll down on the PowerPoint behind us, would simply be the elimination of elementary and middle schools in those two reference points, which would in fact then mean that the diversity plan ratios would be applicable to high school transfers.
I'm sorry, did you make that as a motion to amend?
Yes.
Okay.
To amend back to the original plan. Which
Okay.
would be the elimination of the language in red.
All right. Is there a second to this
Second.
amendment? Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Director Sherwood.
would you please review that? I couldn't hear anything that.
Sure. The motion to amend, this is regarding the diversity plan reference chart and school ratio. It's the single page at the end of the diversity plan that lists all of the schools. And at the bottom of the page is a paragraph. And the paragraph says, this chart is to be used as one element of the effort to eliminate practices and attendance which isolates disadvantaged, and then added is elementary and middle school students. Board Policy 501.11, Attendance Centers, incorporates the provisions of this diversity plan and provides guidance for approving or denying requests for transfers out of, and again, the addition is an elementary or middle school attendance area. That's the way that the diversity plan has been presented to the board tonight for approval. And the motion to amend by Director DeFau is to eliminate the words elementary and middle school in that bottom paragraph in two locations, which would effectively then apply the diversity plan to all schools.
Right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Is there any additional discussion? Director Crumwoody.
I'm confused. Now that we have the open enrollment at all high schools, so are we saying with the diversity plan now that we would not have open enrollment between all the high schools? Because what would take precedence, the open enrollment policy or the diversity plan? I'm totally confused because I thought we just approved open enrollment at the high school levels. So how can we now limit open enrollment based on the diversity plan? I'm confused.
Director DeFau.
And my point in making that motion is to affirm that there is in fact an A to B ratio for our buildings that we want to maintain, regardless of how you are now providing for open transfer between high schools. And the reason is this, we use this ratio to deny families out-of-district open enrollment. And I'm gravely concerned that if we now say, oh, but it doesn't really matter for our high schools anymore, we're not concerned about diversity in our high schools anymore, then any family that has been denied open enrollment out of district based upon this plan, I believe, has grounds to litigate to be allowed to transfer out of district, because if we don't need the plan, why are we enforcing the plan upon them? That concerns me significantly. And if I were one of those families, I would certainly be exploring my options.
Director Crumwoody, do you have additional concerns or questions that you'd
I'm
like
very
to express?
concerned because so we wouldn't have open enrollment between the high schools then. It would be based on our diversity plan. So why are we adopting an open enrollment plan if everything is going to be based on the diversity plan?
I am looking at the implication for the out-of-district open enrollment, and I still believe that we need to have established ratios in order to implement our diversity plan as it relates to out-of-district transfers. To say that the ratio no longer applies to our high schools can be taken to mean that it no longer applies to the out-of-district transfer request, which basically ensures that anybody that applies for out-of-district transfer at the high school level should be allowed to do it.
Mr. President?
Director Sherwood.
Yeah, what I would say is the other districts in the state that have similar plans don't talk about junior high schools and intermediates and so forth. They're concerned about their district ratio, not any particular part of that district, and that's what controls the outflow of people to other districts. It isn't an individual area of the district; it's the district ratio itself. So this would the only thing this would do is to as Ken says, it'd be a backdoor way of shutting down transfers at the high school level. And I think that, in my opinion, there's not much validity in the concern that it would impact the transfers between districts.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Director Zamora.
I would just point out that our high schools with open enrollment have evened out nicely and have a very balanced diversity enrollment. And that's been true since we opened it a number of years ago.
Director Crumwoody.
Again, I want to refer back to the Committee of the Whole meeting last week. I think that Dr. Tate and many of the community members who came forward presented us with some really exciting ideas that I think will add diversity to all of our high schools. So I certainly wouldn't support that amendment.
Director Robertson.
Excuse me. The question I have is that we didn't answer Mrs. DeFowle's question when it says, are we legally at risk when we talk about not having? So do we need to have our legal team take a look at this, or do we vote in the blind and move on?
I can't answer the question relative to a legal issue. And Director DeFow posed a kind of a hypothetical legal issue. If the board wants, we can postpone this decision, and I will get an answer from our council, or the board may continue to move forward and vote on the plan. Or, excuse me, right now we're only voting on the amendment to the plan.
I say we go forward.
Okay, unless there's an additional recommendation, we can move forward, and I can get a legal opinion at a later date. Director Robertson?
So you're proposing that we go ahead and vote not knowing where we're in error or not, as opposed to postponing, or are you talking about the amendment?
No, this is on the amendment, and this is, I'm not proposing anything. I'm just trying to acknowledge Director Zamora's representation. Any additional discussion on the amendment? We'll call for the vote on the amendment. The amendment is to strike the elementary and middle school language in both locations in the paragraph at the bottom of the page, which is the diversity plan reference chart and school ratio, which has a heading of modified to reflect the majority opinion of the board expressed 5/28/13. We'll call for the vote. Excuse me one second. Director DeFow?
Yes.
Director Robertson?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
No.
Director Zamora?
No.
Director Sherwood? No. Director Crumwitty?
No.
My vote is yes. The motion fails, and the amendment fails. We're now on the original motion, which is the district diversity plan, which was the motion was made by Director Kluhl and seconded by Director Crumwitty, which is to approve the attached change to the Davenport Community School District diversity plan, which is the one that you all see before you. And Director Sherwood, you understand what we're voting on?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there any additional discussion on this motion? Director Kluhl.
I just want to say that I appreciate the work that administration has done on the diversity plan back and forth since we started talking about it here several months ago. And I believe that there's been a considerable amount of consultation back and forth with the school's attorney on the language that we're using here. So I trust that administration is confident that the language that we're going forward with will not put us in a knowingly litigious situation.
Superintendent Tate.
I did send the previous language that I had submitted to the board to our attorney, and she approved the language. She said we would not get in any trouble. She also indicated that anything that we change within this particular page would not need to go to the Department of Education because it was our internal plan as opposed to our external. I did not submit this language to her, so I don't know if that would change her mind at all. I can't represent her from that standpoint.
Did you have any additional concern, Director Kluhl?
I don't have any further discussion. No.
Okay. Director Robertson?
Again, I asked the question, did our legal team address the question that Mrs. DeFow had? We talked about things that we sent, but I never did hear that, yes, we're okay, that it was addressed, that we're not in jeopardy of losing our plan as the way it stands in terms of out-of-district transfers.
Let me try to answer it to the best of my ability. I think that I would acknowledge as well that previously we had run all of this by our council. These changes, which restrict the application of the diversity plan to the elementary and middle school students, to my knowledge, has never been presented to our council. The and the difficulty with this particular sheet is that the way that everything has been written and discussed is that this diversity plan would apply, and it would generally apply to transfers between districts. That's the way that this original diversity plan, as we've all studied it and looked at it and understood its history, was originally developed. However, there were application requirements for doing something with diversity within the district. If this document were only to be used within the district, I believe that our council has said it is legal. because we can do anything that we want within the district. And I think the superintendent is correct in that we can do minor modifications like this, which are considered to be tweaks, and this would not have to go back to the Department of Education for review for use within the district. It could be considered a tweak relative to its use in transfers between districts, but that's something that I would feel much more comfortable in talking to our council about. So we have these different applications of this particular plan and its incorporation into our attendance center policy, the diversity plan relative to within the district, and the diversity plan relative to transfers to other districts. So I don't know that that really answers your question, Director Robertson.
Thank you.
But that, to the best of my ability, is my recollection of the discussions that we've had with our council relative to this plan.
The only question I have left is that are we in a rush to approve this tonight, or would we be better served to get the advice of our council so that we know exactly that we're voting on and that it's okay and that it has teeth? Are we in a hurry to vote on this tonight, or do we have to get this voted in tonight?
I can't answer that. Superintendent Tate? Is there a sense of urgency to this voting on this diversity plan?
The transfer policy was the more important, so I'd say no from that standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Director Zamora.
Yeah, we've gone on and on and on about this, and once again I say, if we vote on tonight, which we should do and get this done, and then we find that a change needs to be made, we've already been told we can make tweaks anytime we want to. So let's get it voted on, and then let's, if we have to tweak it, bring it back again.
Mr. President?
Director Sherwood.
Yeah, and I would like to support what Pat just said. I think it's highly unlikely that this is going to affect the transfer policy out of the district based on what I've read from the other districts. But in the event that it might, we can deal with that. I think that we need to get this going. If Dr. Tate's concern was on the open enrollment policy, this is again going to be a backdoor way of stopping open enrollment at the high school level, and so that this has, I think, the same weight of needing to be dealt with as did that policy we just approved. So I would think that we should vote on this tonight, and then again take it to the attorney. And I'd also say it's a little frustrating that this issue was raised at the board meeting when it wasn't raised in the policy committee, and we had time then to speak to the attorney and have some resolution of this before it came to the board. So that's a little frustration. But that's it. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? I just wanted to say a couple things. One is that I do, again, I like the consistency of application of a plan to all students. It's a little, again, it's counterintuitive, and I think it's counter-philosophical to me to apply something like this only to a group of students. I don't see it as a way to prevent the open enrollment at the high school level. I do see it as the modification would have been to provide consistency in my mind. If there's no additional discussion, we'll call for the vote. And this is on the district diversity plan, which is this plan, which includes the language elementary and middle school students. It's as written. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
No.
Director Zamora.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Robertson?
No.
My vote is no. The motion carries. The district diversity plan is affirmed as written. Thank you very much. We've got two discussion items, hazard mitigation plan and final boundary recommendations. Dr. Tate, how long will the hazard mitigation plan take?
10 minutes, plus questions.
The suggestion has been made to reverse the two and to have the final boundary recommendations first. And I'm not sure what precipitated that, whether it's a timing issue.
It's the timing issue. I really need to move on, so that's why I asked for that.
Dr. Tate, I know that we've got people waiting for both of these.
She said she can wait.
Is that okay?
Are you set to do the boundary?
Yes. Yep.
All right, good. Then thank you for that consideration. We'll move to the final boundary recommendations first, and we'll talk about hazard mitigation second.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're at a point that tonight I'm going to ask Mr. Martin to throw up on the screen the final recommendations by school for the boundaries that I am making tonight, and then you have tentatively planned on the 24th of June to do a final vote. I have also provided you a feeder system from elementary to intermediate to high school that you have seen for quite a while, and also the current boundary utilization as well as the A-B ratio chart, and then also something you've seen before, a sequence of implementing boundary changes or the grandfathering. So again, we'll just go school by school and show you. Most of this you've seen before. There have been some changes along the way, and there's two very significant changes, and Scott will mention that when he gets to them.
Okay. Well, Adams, this is Adams as it is now, the current policy. This is Adams with the changes that are being proposed. The main changes are this section upper in the upper left-hand corner. That used to be Jackson, but because of efficiencies, we've moved them into Adams. The other two pieces that are significant are Garfield and Madison in these two areas respectively. That would be changed to Adams. One other area is 12 blocks right here. It's in the Jefferson area. And that was for safety reasons. We do provide safety busing now for them to go to Adams, and I believe it will be walk distance for them to go to Jefferson. Those are the main changes on Adams. This is Bluegrass as it is now, and for the most part, Bluegrass remained as was, except for the Hickory Hills area. And this is a drawing of the blue is the Bluegrass boundary. The green is the Buffalo boundary. The line has been drawn to delineate between the Hickory Hills area and who goes to Buffalo Bluegrass by the way that the streets run and the way that they touch that boundary. So that we're not running one bus this way to go to Buffalo and another bus this way to go to Bluegrass. So this is the way the line has run. If they touched this boundary, then we went ahead, or these roads that are close, then we went ahead and made that change. That's on the western side of Hickory Hills in this particular area. This is the other side of that goes to 95th Street. Buchanan, boy, that's a lousy picture, isn't it? It's in here. There are no changes to Buchanan, let's say that. These are off the district website. Well, they're just not very good. Buffalo Elementary has a couple changes. The first one to Buffalo is this line up in your upper right-hand corner. This is the Hayes area. West of Fairmont, we moved to Buffalo. All of this is Buffalo here. So it was we already had buses in the area, so we went to this edge for Fairmont to relieve Hayes and build up Buffalo. Again, and this is the same line that you just saw on the Bluegrass. On this side of this line would be the Buffalo boundary. We would do away with the optional attendance policy for that area. This is this eastern half of that going again to, I think it's 95th Avenue, I believe. Eisenhower, there are no changes to the Eisenhower boundary. Fillmore, this is the original Fillmore boundary. The only change is this section right here. It's on Northwest Boulevard. It's north of Red Hawk Golf Course. And the reason that was made was because 59th Street would go to Fillmore and 58th Street would go to Truman. And it's walk distance for both of those. So, and we would bus 59th to Fillmore. So we made that change to put them at Truman. This is the original Garfield. If I can outline it for you, you can see it comes over to the Adams area and then goes that way for the Madison area. The line, the change for Garfield is what's west of Harrison would be the change for Garfield, and they would go to Adams. This is Harrison. There are no boundary changes for Harrison proposed. Hayes has only one change, and that is what is west of Fairmont would go to Buffalo. That is the only change proposed for Hayes. Jackson, there's only one small change for Jackson, and if you could see it, let's be easier this way. It used to come all the way over, almost to Hillendale, and then drop down. And so there was picked up 3 kids right here off of Hillendale that actually across the street they went to Adams. So we extended that, we cut that there, and came down Fairmont. With a second small change for Jackson is to Zenith Avenue, which is 2 blocks in or west of Fairmont. So this line delineates Wilson and Jackson. So west of that line would go to Jackson, east would go to Wilson. One change at Jefferson. This yellow, this is the clearest one we've seen so far. This yellow boundary right here, this 12 blocks would go to Jefferson, and this is Locust, and this is I don't know, maybe Pine or Lincoln. I think it's Lincoln. No, it's Division. I'm sorry. So these students would go to Jefferson. Here's your boundary line. It picks up these 12 blocks right in this corner. Other than that, Jefferson stays the same. Madison. This is Madison as it is now. This is Madison as it would become. West of Harrison would go to Adams. This area right here, Farnham, this is the old Lincoln area, which we'll talk about shortly. This was the old McKinley. There was an area right here that was McKinley. So Madison would pick up McKinley, and then this was Washington to Mississippi Avenue. So if you lived west of Mississippi, you would go to Madison. So Madison and McKinley is what picks up and goes to Madison. McKinley, this is McKinley here, and it also had this little section over here, which we just talked about, split in the middle right by Washington. This would, the only change then would be that we would extend the McKinley boundary into the Washington area to relieve some of the overcrowding at Washington, and goes up. This is Mississippi to Kirkwood Boulevard, and then the rest of this boundary starting right here is original. It used to go straight down. So anyway, that is the change for McKinley. Monroe, no changes at Monroe. Truman, we just talked about briefly. This is, I wish I had better pictures for you, I'm sorry. Really washed out. This only change for Truman is picking up 59th Street. That is the only one, and that's just primarily because they're walk distance, and they will be busing to Fillmore. Walcott, there are no changes for Walcott. Washington School, this is the current Washington boundary. It starts up here, comes down all the way over to the old McKinley boundary, which is, I think it was Farnham, which was right here. This would be the new Washington boundary. The south side, east and south would go to McKinley, west and south would go to Madison. Wilson is primarily unchanged, with the exception that what I talked to you a little bit about this point right here. It used to run the tracks through here, and we just made ahead and made some, I think, some sensible changes to take it all the way up to the corner of Hickory Grove and Fairmount, and then it comes down, and so the east side of Fairmount would go to Wilson, the west side would go to Jackson. Everything else remains the same down to Waverly Street. So Smart Intermediate, Smart, we start to see some changes because they used to pick up, Smart used to pick up this part of Hayes and this part of Buffalo, and Buffalo under the new proposed boundaries would go to Walcott. So the new Sudlow or Smart line would be right here on Fairmount. This is the original existing Sudlow. The new Sudlow, this becomes a little bit more difficult to see. Sudlow picks up all of Eisenhower, Garfield, McKinley, and Washington. So it would not pick up Madison. This is the Madison area right here, and then the old Lincoln. So it would not have Madison. So this is essentially the Garfield, Washington, McKinley, Eisenhower area right here. That is a small change. Walcott picks up, this is the boundary now. Walcott would include all of Buffalo as well as the section at Hayes that we carved out to send to Buffalo to build up their enrollment. Williams, this is Williams as it is now. And this is Williams as it would be. It's essentially the same, except on the east side of that, it would pick up what used to be probably Sudlow, which is Garfield and Madison in this area. They would now go to Williams because they are going to Adams. Wood essentially stays the same. There's just a small section here where Jackson, where we carved out that piece for Jackson to go to on the other side or down south. This is a current Young. Young would pick up all of Jefferson, and this is corner right here, which used to be Adams, so that would be a change coming into Young, as well as this corner here, which used to be Washington and McKinley. They would now be part of Young. This is the central now, is this very paler area. Under the original proposal we made would be all of Eisenhower. It may be moot at this point. But do you want me to continue through those or not? Dr. Tate, would you like me to continue through those, or since?
What they would look like? We don't have boundaries.
Well, we've already voted.
No, this is just discussion.
This is
Transportation boundaries now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So anyway, so I'd ask a question. So anyway, it was all of Eisenhower, Garfield, McKinley, Washington. All of this essentially would be, and it feeds into Sudlow and Young would go to Central. There's Norris boundary now. This would be Norris proposed boundary. The change here is Division Street. We would split Adams, and the east part would go to to North, and the west side would go to Williams. Other than that, did I say west? Williams, west. Sorry. And then there was a section right here that was west, and we pulled that into north as well. So West essentially has everything that's left. The Williams, the dividing line at Division and West, and everything west of Hayes and Monroe would go to West High School. And that is all of them.
Is that the presentation?
That is, and when we come back to you, when you decide that you want to vote on the boundaries, what I'll essentially be asking you to vote upon is Administrative Regulation 501.12A, which is the listing of street by street by street. I can't ask you to vote for a picture, but this will be the exact definition, street by street, as we now have.
Especially when you can't see.
Changed.
Any additional discussion?
Mr. President,
Director Zamora.
I presume in view of tonight's vote, number 10 will be removed.
Excuse me. Yes, on the sequence for implementing boundary changes, I had indicated the high school, there'd be no transfers after 2014-15. That would not be on there.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Director DeFau.
I would recommend that none of these revisions go into effect. I'm talking about the boundaries, not anything we voted on tonight. Not go into effect until the next school year. Students have already participated in kindergarten roundup. They've already participated in orientations for their middle schools. They've already signed up for classes at their high schools. So to force a change now at this late juncture for this fall is a bad decision. So I would recommend that they all be taken into effect the next school year.
Any additional discussion? Director Kluhl.
I'd like to hear administration's response.
Well, I'm reflecting, I've got what I call the sequence for implementing boundary changes, which is grandfathering, which essentially at the elementary and intermediate would say that anyone that is currently in the boundary and signed up for kindergarten and on up through the 5th grade could stay there. Anybody that wanted to change could, if they have a new boundary. If they are in the school, even though they're in a boundary change area, a sibling can still go to that elementary or intermediate school. So I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if there'd be any practical effect on anyone this year with these grandfathering issues that I proposed.
You may have incoming 6th grade students who don't have a SIB at that middle school who have already participated in 6th grade orientation that now would be reboundaried to another middle school. So there is no grandfathering. They haven't started in that building yet. So if you're telling me if they're enrolled there for this year that they get to stay regardless of what their boundary would be, then that's acceptable to me. If you're saying, well, despite the fact that you've undergone orientation at the intermediate, you should have attended, now we're going to shift you to another intermediate based on a decision that was made in late June when you already have met the teachers, gone to the building, et cetera, then I have a problem with that.
So that this is someone who's just come in the district, doesn't have a history in an elementary school?
They may very well be in an elementary school, but there still could be in a position where they should have gone, they would have been going to Wood and now all of a sudden are going to Williams. They've already enrolled in Wood, participated, et cetera. They don't have a SIB to pull them in that way through a grandfathering. Their SIB is either younger or in high school, pick one.
I wonder if this would cover that. Current 5th grade students may attend the intermediate school assigned by current boundaries rather than new boundaries for all the way up through 2014-15. So that should cover it, I
That would
think.
satisfy it. I just want to make sure that
But
that
I
in fact
appreciate
is the
that
case.
because I don't want to do any of that, and I've tried to consider all those things.
Anything else? Director Kluhl.
Well, I really appreciate administration's effort to do this grandfathering. I think it's very important. I know that it really delays the efficiency of what we're trying to do, but I think it's the right thing to stand by the people of our district to do it.
Director Zamora.
I agree with both of the statements of the previous directors.
Thank you. Director Crumwoody.
Yes, I also appreciate the administration's work. I know that both Dr. Tate and Scott have spent hours and hours working on these boundary changes, and I also want to compliment the public for coming forward and expressing their opinions, because that is, as far as I'm concerned, changes my mind sometimes on proposed recommendations that are being made. And so listening to the public during open forum and during the community groups that Dr. Tate put together, I really appreciate the public coming forward and expressing their opinions. And again, thanks to Dr. Tate for taking the time, and not only Dr. Tate, but also the administration, who spent many hours attending those meetings, taking notes, and getting all that information back to all of us board members. So thank you.
Any additional discussion? I had a couple. I think they're quick. And I appreciate the difficulty you must have in trying to make a quick presentation to us. And one of the areas that I was interested in, and you flew by so quickly I couldn't even, it's like picture, was the bluegrass and buffalo.
Okay.
And especially in the area of Hickory Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to make sure I understood what the current situation was and what the recommendation was.
Well, the current situation is that the Hickory Hills is optional at this time to go to either buffalo or bluegrass. You can take your choice. And we had talked early on that we would take away that optional choice. And this is the boundary line for bluegrass through the southern. It's actually through the southern section of Hickory Hills. Most of it is north of the delineation point right here. So what I did was, if your property touched the drives on this side, it would be more efficient for our transportation to touch these properties, even though they touch both boundaries. I made that decision to bring them into the buffalo side and north of that road to the bluegrass.
So the difficulty I was having was in trying to understand, was the black line representative of something?
That is, well, unfortunately, this is off of an old program that we no longer have, so I couldn't make that change. This is north of this line would be bluegrass students. South of this line would be buffalo students.
Oh, okay, so it isn't the blue and the green.
No,
it's the black.
those are the current boundaries. This is the current, blue is the current bluegrass, and green is the current buffalo. But there was no, you had your choice on which way.
You had choice either way.
Yes.
Okay. One other thing, just, I don't know if it's curiosity or what, but it looked like you must have had at least 3 different programs in there. One program had like little buildings with a flag, which I assumed meant school.
Yeah.
And then one had little M's, which I didn't know if those were like McDonald's.
That actually came off the district website when I took those off. I'm not sure where those came from. We used our district maps, which are prepared originally by Shive Hattery, and then and those are actually the ones that have those different things on it. And then I had a consultant called QCGIS that did them on an ESRI program, which it ties directly with the GIS for the county and the city.
Okay, so but it was difficult in trying to reconcile those. It looked like three different programmatic
Yes. It's
plans.
Yes.
So the one that you're on is the last one that
Right.
had the recommendations,
Right.
but that we couldn't read the street names on.
Well, this would be representative of the one that we just had completed by QCGIS. The previous one, that's actually the one that is our district map on our district website.
Okay. But what we're going to have is something that's clear.
You will
and
have street delineations.
Right, and the schools will be identified, the location.
Well, it's not in the street the street descriptions. It's not. I can put in. I can include all these maps in it, which will have the school located on it, as well as the street descriptions. That's really the legal definition of it.
I understand the street descriptions. I just want to say it's helpful to me to see where the school is relative to the boundaries. So,
Correct.
And on the previous ones, it looks like we had them, and then on those final ones, at least I couldn't see them. So,
On that GIS one, it was not included.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
It actually showed the building shape. It did not mark it as the
Okay.
other ones did with
Okay,
their
great.
sign.
And I do appreciate everything. I really do. If there are no other discussion items here, we'll move on to Hazard Mitigation Plan. Director Robertson, thanks for sticking with us as long as you did.
All right.
Superintendent Tate.
Well, we're going to wrap this up quick. Let me go ahead and close that one. You can pull yours up. I'd like to introduce you to, do you have it? Laura Berkeley. Laura is a senior planner for Bi-State Regional Commission, and she's led us through this process so far over the last year. Over the last year, we've been working on this, and it's a program that we have to have approved locally by the board and at the state level for us to apply for FEMA funds for construction in the event that there were funds available. So this is all, we've gone through the district piece by piece, all kinds of different levels of possibility of hazards, and Laura has worked us right through each one, and even looking at it tonight, we're going to go back and have another work session because all of the things that have happened since December in school safety and things that we're implementing now are things that we need to put on the hazard mitigation plan for the state to review. So, Laura Berkeley.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'll try to keep this as quick as possible, and then you can ask me any questions that you want. I first want to go over hazard mitigation so everyone's clear on what exactly we mean by hazard mitigation, and then I'll give you a quick update of where we are with the plan, and then you can have questions or comments. Okay, so hazard mitigation planning is not emergency response planning. You guys already have a very extensive and detailed emergency response plan. That is not to take this place. It's supplemental to that plan. Hazard mitigation is a sustained action to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and their property from hazards. Some examples are tornado safe rooms, property acquisition and relocation, stormwater management. This picture is on Davenport. Is in Davenport over on 32nd Street over Duck Creek, where in 2008 they had that really bad flash flood. This is an example straight from the 2010 state plan, hazard mitigation plan. So City of Davenport's been very proactive in their hazard mitigation. So between 1993 and 2001, they acquired 45 properties that were in the floodplain due to flooding. And the cost for those properties was $2 million. In 2008, when they had the major flood hit Davenport, they saved an estimated almost $4 million by having acquired those properties. So it's thinking long term, so that and in your case, it will be more towards saving lives than for saving money, but this is just an example for you. So why do you need it? Scott kind of alluded to this. there is a Disaster Mitigation Act 2000, which basically said that in order to access mitigation grant funding from FEMA, you need to have a hazard mitigation plan in place, and you need to have mitigation actions listed in that plan that you would be applying for those funds. So these are the 4 types of funds available from FEMA. The pre-disaster mitigation and the hazard mitigation grant program are the most likely ones for the school district to apply for. And as a note, this does not affect individual assistance from FEMA. So if your property floods and there's a presidential disaster declaration and you get money from FEMA, you know, up to $28,800 if your property's destroyed, you'd still get that even if this plan was not in place. And the city of Davenport has one anyway. So additional benefits raises public awareness and understanding of their vulnerabilities, support for specific actions to reduce losses from natural disasters, informed decisions on prioritization and implementation of projects, and your benefits accrue over the life of a project. So there's some existing plans. In 2010, the state updated their hazard mitigation plan, and we just did in 2012, the Scott County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan was approved. So the natural hazards that are, these are the natural hazards that are included in the Davenport Community School District Plan. It's everything that's in the state plan and the Scott County-wide one. And here's the man-made ones. Also the same pretty much as the state plan. In the Scott County plan, these are actually, they started that plan before the 2010 plan came out, and so they actually have more hazards, but they fall into these categories. Each hazard is profiled, and we include information such as definition, description, the maximum extent of damage, the historical occurrence that has been in the district, the probability of occurrence, the magnitude and severity of the occurrence, warning time for the disaster, and the duration of the disaster. We also do a community profile, and we have determined the community assets and critical facilities for the district. We try to estimate potential loss where that's available to do, and we analyze development trends in both growing population and where the school district may expand in the future. We try to prioritize the hazards themselves by creating, this is the state did this, in terms of the probability of something happening, the magnitude and severity of it happening, the warning time and duration, to kind of score it in an objective fashion. And these were all done in work sessions. So those are prioritized, but you can't just take straight up the score is, because sometimes they get a little out of whack, although we didn't really change it too much. So tier 1 are immediate need for mitigation, unacceptable consequences, and then that goes down for longer term projects that can wait or that you're okay with in terms of the damage. These were the goals that were settled for the hazard mitigation plan. They're very, very similar to the Scott County-wide one. The only one that's not included in there is one about protecting, it's another property protection one for individuals. But these line up very similar, and that was done intentionally because the goal is to merge them into the future so that Davenport Community School District is included in the Scott County-wide plan. The objectives are FEMA recommended objectives, preventative measures, which are policy changes, property protection, which are modification of buildings. Public education awareness is key, not often funded by FEMA, but key to any good mitigation project. Natural resource protection, structural projects such as safe rooms, and emergency services, which is kind of emergency management, because those do tie in very closely together. These are the initial list of mitigation actions that the committee, the planning team, put together. We're going to sit down and add more things. You guys have been very proactive ever since Sandy Hook, and I applaud you for that. We want to make sure that you're credited for doing that, and maybe look into the future a little further, because this plan is supposed to be good for 5 years. So here's the rest of them. So what you do, we took those mitigation actions, tried to figure out what goal those fit under, just for organization's sake, and what mitigation measure that falls into in terms of the objectives. Then we evaluate them for feasibility, and it's STAPLY, which is, it's done at the state level. So we just took that example so it was consistent with the state. STAPLY stands for Social, Technical, Administrative, Political, Legal, Economic, and Environmental. So you're looking at it comprehensively to make sure it's a feasible project. The actions must be prioritized. This was stressed to me by FEMA with the Scott County plan. And you're supposed to have a emphasis on benefit-cost ratio, meaning the benefit outweighs the cost. Also key is a plan maintenance process, meaning this is a living document that you're supposed to review continuously. You can amend, and you plan on updating it in the future. And like I said, the ultimate goal is to merge this with the Scott County multi-jurisdictional plan. So where we've gotten so far in terms of public input, back in September of 2012, we had a public meeting here. And we've had public meetings over at the Operations Center. We just concluded an online survey for input on the mitigation actions, and we'll be having another public input meeting held later this summer when the plan is completely written. These are the results of the survey. They cut off the mitigation actions a little bit. Orange represents I support, blue is I do not support, and purple is I have no opinion. So in terms of supportable projects, review of existing emergency policies and procedures, continue to communicate those existing policies to the public, NOAA weather radios, which will notify each facility of incoming natural disasters or hazardous material spills, and the complete installation of security measures are all pretty popularly supported. I do want to note that there were only 33 respondents to the survey that was online for about 6 weeks. The most unsupported mitigation measures that have come forth was research into lightning detectors for schools and the facilities that would protect your athletes in case of a thunderstorm from lightning. And then building a berm around the Brady Street Stadium. I think some of that is due to not educating the public in terms of what happens in that situation, how much money that actually costs the school district to repair. So in some of this is where the public education awareness would come into play as well. So what's next? We're going to review the survey in more detail and discuss its results, which will have a reflection on the prioritization of mitigation actions. We also are going to add to that list things that the school district already has planned in the future to give you acknowledgement and credit for that. We'll be doing the public input meeting later this summer. The board will need to adopt the plan by resolution, and I with the language pending FEMA approval. Once we're satisfied with the draft. The plan will be sent to the state for review and then to FEMA for final approval. That last part can take quite a while with Scott County plan. We submitted it in November 2011 and it was approved in August 2012. So it depends. So I went over that kind of quickly. Do you have any questions?
I would imagine so. Are there any questions for Laura or for Scott? Director Kluhl?
Who at the state will review the plan?
It is the Homeland Security Emergency Management Division. It's kind of like the Emergency Management Division in Illinois or at that kind of level.
Okay. And how is public in terms of numbers of people coming to the public meetings? Have you had a number of people attend?
The first public input meeting wasn't very well attended. It was some people from Red Cross and emergency response organizations, no general members of public. Our first open meeting where we actually reviewed all of the hazard profiles, we did have some press coverage. There was a story, and Scott was quoted in it as well. It was both in the newspaper, and there was a little TV spot on one of the stations. So we did, it's kind of a mix in terms of public participation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Anything else? Bill, Director Sherwood, do you have anything? Oh, he might have left. Laura, your last name was Berkeley.
Correct.
And what's your title?
I'm a senior planner at Bi-State Regional Commission.
And where's that located?
We're housed at the Rock Island County Building. We're the Council of Government for the region. It's the regional planning agency. We hold the long-range transportation plan, the economic development plan for the region, and we provide some other services as well.
And how much time, this looks like you must have spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how much time I've spent.
But a lot.
A decent amount, yes.
And how do you work with us?
I work mostly with Scott. We have a small committee that we meet with in terms of discussion of items, but I funnel it mostly through Scott.
Well, let me ask it differently. In fact, Scott, how did we get Laura involved in our process?
Bi-State was instrumental in getting the Scott County plan implemented. So we contracted with Bi-State to help us walk through this process to make sure that we didn't miss anything.
Normally speaking, we don't work with the school districts. We're a member service with the governments. So it's with the City of Davenport's blessing that we are working with the school district.
Well, I wanted to say I was astounded at your presentation. I think it was incredibly complete. It answers a lot of questions that board members have had. And so I'm looking forward to the plan that the board would adopt by resolution. One question I had relative to that is that you talked about prioritization and a plan or process that you have for prioritizing these different actions. Will the prioritization of those actions be part of the plan that's presented to the state?
Yes.
So when that plan is presented to the board, there might be 20 items on there, and there will be a cost associated with each one, an estimated
An estimate
cost.
for most of them,
Right.
yes. Yeah.
And so
I know
So
where
I'm
you're
just-
going with this.
huh?
I know where you're going.
Oh,
with
well
this.
then go ahead and answer the question.
FEMA Region 7 has already given the opinion that you're under no obligation financially to carry out any of these mitigation actions.
And I understand that, but what about prioritization? If the number one item comes up and it's a $5 million action, but we have number 10 is
The low-hanging fruit kind of thing.
right. I mean, and so prioritization from the board might be different from prioritization from the committee.
Correct. And
And-
you guys have final say.
So we could still change the prioritization
Yeah.
at the time that the plan is presented.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And we can bring this through policy committee first if you wish.
We'll work through that. I don't know, because it's going to be a while before you're ready to present it, right?
A couple of months, probably.
Oh, wow, that's great.
We've
Okay,
actually got a lot of the plan
Right.
written.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much, Laura and Scott.
Welcome.
That was a great presentation. Are there any administrative reports?
No, Mr. President.
Are there any board reports or requests? Wow. Well, Director Crumwitty? Oh. I tell you what, I have one to make, and I wasn't really planning on making it, but I committed myself to making this report if the board meeting got done before 10 o'clock, which it will. I attended the ALICE training last week, and there were 62 people from our district, and they were primarily principals, but there were custodians represented, teachers represented, food service was represented. It was an amazing representation from the district. And Director Sherwood was there as well. And we planned on making a real report at an upcoming meeting, and we still will. It'll be a little bit more formal. The reason I'm presenting a little bit of a report now, though, is that at the end of the meeting, we had everybody there, and we had gone through some scenarios, and I had the opportunity to thank everybody that had participated in that training. I think that most, if not all, I didn't talk with all of them, of course, but my sense was that they were 100% supportive of it. They talked of the process, and they talked of the changes as kind of being a no-brainer. And I agree with that. And I think I just wanted to say, to the extent that it means anything, that I wanted to thank the administration for accessing and providing that training, and I wanted to individually, but as a board member, support the approach that that ALICE training is recommending. And I wanted to recommend that to the board. That's it for my report. If there are no other reports, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Yes.